is SMNI News Channel. Truth that matters.
Good evening, Philippines, and good day, world. I'm Jayne Codnita. It's Thursday, the 3rd day of August, and you're watching Newsline World. We're here to bring you the top stories we've gathered from all over the globe. First, Pastor Apollo lauded Movie and Television Review and Classification Board, or MTRCB, for taking action over alleged indecent acts on a Philippine noontime television. In Niger, a coup leader visited Mali, raising speculations over the possible interest of Niger in the Russian paramilitary group Wagner. Belarus says its helicopters never violated Polish airspace amid Poland's fears that Wagner forces stationed in Belarus could launch an attack against them. In China, its government drafted new rules to combat smartphone addiction among minors. And Fitch agency downgrades U.S. credit rating over America's deteriorating standards of governance. These and more for tonight's edition of Newsline World. First in our news, Pastor Apollo Kibuloy of the Kingdom of Jesus Christ praised Movie and Television Review and Classification Board, or MTRCB, for their prompt response to complaints regarding explicit scenes shown on a noontime show. Jayne Codnita tells us more.
Pastor Apollo Kibuloy expressed his thanks for the immediate action taken by the Movie and Television Review and Classification Board, or MTRCB, regarding complaints about offensive scenes shown on a noontime show on July 25. On Monday, July 31, the producers of the noontime program, It's Showtime, were immediately summoned by the MTRCB following numerous complaints from netizens who found the scene inappropriate, especially considering that many children watched the show. In the show segment, Isip Bata, the real-life partners were seen playfully teasing each other while demonstrating how to handle cake icing. The MTRCB stated in their memorandum that the said scene violated Section 3 of Presidential Decree No. 1986 and its implementing rules and regulations.
Ay, ngayon, magiging sample sa mga kabataan yan? Diba? O di, salamat naman sa MTRCB at nakita nila ito.
The good pastor also blamed the influence of Western culture, particularly on social media, for the display of explicit scenes.
Pero itong mga asal na ganito, asal-aso yan. Galing sa degradation ng West yan eh. Ito namang mga bunsang libutan, tinitingnan naman kung anong ginagawa nitong taga-kanluran, tapos sinusunod, pati kalaswan sinusunod. Lalo ngayon may social media. Maghubad ang babae dyan, walang kaso yan. Parang natural na lang sa kanila yan. Lahat nandyan na. Tapos gagaya-gayahin natin dito.
Pastor Apollo also emphasized that SMNI will never air such explicit scenes.
Sa SMNI, ay naku, huwag kayong gaganon. Wala, hindi pwede dito yung mga kalaswaan na ganyan. Hindi pwede dito yan. Kaya dito, family-oriented and nation-building. At saka, isang araw, ibabalik natin yung pagtuturo ng good manners and right conduct dito. Yung mga Filipino culture na napakaganda, yung nagmamano ka sa mga nakakatanda sa iyo, nanay at tatay, nire-respeto mo. Ibabalik natin yun. At yung pagtutulong-tulong sa mga nakakatanda sa iyo, ang respeto, ganon. Mga example lang yun ng magandang asal.
It's worth noting that on its Showtime, Vice Ganda also insulted and challenged Pastor Apollo Kibuloy to end ang probinsyano and solve the traffic problem on EDSA, which later came true. For God and my beloved Philippines, this has been Jayne Codnita, SMNI News.
In response to the recent Senate resolution urging the country to bring the South China Sea issue to the UN General Assembly, Pastor Apollo Kibuloy of the Kingdom of Jesus Christ has called on senators to make their decisions carefully. The good pastor also emphasized that the arbitral ruling on the South China Sea is considered void and invalid without China's inclusion. Hannah Jane Sancho reports.
Do not act impulsively in making decisions. This is the call of Pastor Apollo Cignal on his program Give Us This Day on Wednesday, when asked about the issue of the Senate resolution condemning China's alleged harassment in the West Philippine Sea. To recall, Senator Risa Ontiveros previously suggested that the said issue should be brought to the United Nations General Assembly or UNGA. Senate President Mig Zubir supported her suggestion and said that the diplomatic protests against China should continue. Zubiri also recommended to end the bilateral talks between the Philippines and China. However, on Tuesday, August 1st, the said plan has withdrawn to the Senate Resolution 718, but it still insists that the issue should be pursued in the international arena, and if China refuses to engage in dialogue, then the issue could be brought to the United Nations General Assembly. To this, Pastor Apollo said that senators should consider all situations first and to not let blind bravery prevail.
Para sa akin, huwag pabugso-bugso sa inyong mga desisyon, mga mahal naming mga senador. No, kagalang-galang kayo at alam naming ang interes ng bansa ang inaatupag ninyo, pero kailangan magkaroon kayo ng wisdom. W-I-S-D-O-M. Maging wise kayo sa inyong mga pag-iisip. Alam ko itong ginagawa ninyo ito, nagpapakita kayo ng katapangan para sa ating bansa. Pero pagka ikaw ay isang mambabatas tulad ng isang senador, hindi lamang katapangan na blind bravery ang kailangan para mamuno ka. You have to be a wise leader. You have to have wisdom. Timbangin mo ang lahat ng sitwasyon bago ka magsalita, bago ka gumawa ng isang desisyon.
According to Pastor Apollo, China has toughened its stance in the disputed waters after the issue was first brought up in The Hague during the time of former President Noynoy Aquino. He said that we have the right, but we lack the capability, because China has already rejected this arbitral ruling. It can be noted that The Hague refers to the Permanent Court of Arbitration in The Hague, Netherlands, where the arbitral tribunal issued its ruling on the South China Sea dispute.
Nung inelevate natin ito sa international, nung unang pagkakataon, lalong tumigas ang tayo ng China. Lalo silang naging matigas sa kanilang tayo. Di ba? Lalo tayong ginipit. Bakit di natin magamit ang right natin? Sapagkat wala tayong kakayanan na i-enforce yun. Kahit right natin. Kasi kung i-enforce mo yun, magkakagera tayo at China. Pag i-enforce mo ang sarili mo sa pakikipaggera sa China, meron ba tayong laban? Meron ba tayong laban? Kasi kung i-enforce mo yun, kasi right natin nga, okay, sinabi nung arbitral ruling na yun, na hindi naman kasali ang China. Pag hindi kasali ang China, parang void and invalid pa rin yun.
Pastor Apollo also lauded the capability of former President Duterte in balancing the situation during his time, as he befriended China and did not forcefully push the issues that caused misunderstandings between the two countries.
When Duterte came, and former President Duterte came, the wise leader that he was, he befriended China. He was that wise, so wise a leader as to not really a peace, but become a friend, to become an equal with them, na pag-usapan na lang ang mga bagay na ito. Kasi na-embarrass na ang China rin pag nilagay mo sila sa spotlight in the international arena tulad ng UN.
Meanwhile, Pastor Apollo raised a question about whether the country is prepared for the next step if the issue is pursued and supported by UN member states, as the issue could potentially lead to war.
Ang China, napakarami ng mga kakibat na mga bansa na tinulungan nila, na boboto for them. Tayo, makikipaglaban doon. Halimbawa, sinong bumoto sa atin? Okay, bumoto. Kayon, pag bumoto sila, halimbawa, nanalo tayo sa Butuan na ipilit natin. So, Agawin natin ngayon yung disputed na lugar na yon sa West Philippine Sea, which they call the South China Sea. Agawin natin. Tutulong kaya ang mga bansang itong bumoto sa iyo pag kayo ay... Ang end result kasi ito, puro gera eh. Pag pinilit mo yung sarili mo eh. Puro gera to eh. Pagka nakipaggera tayo ngayon, hindi lang tayo kasi yung arbitral ruling, wala tayong kakayanan. Kaya pupunta naman tayo doon, makikipagbangayan. Hindi na tayo makikipag-usap sa China. Tapos boboto yung mga kwan doon. Oo nga, sa inyo nga yan. Kumampi sila sa atin ngayon. Ngayon, anong gagawin natin sa susunod nang kumampi sila? Kasama ng Amerika, kasama ng ibang mga bansa. Anong gagawin natin? Ano ang susunod na hakbang? Pagkatapos nun, status quo pa rin ba? O ipipilit na naman natin para kunin ang atin kasapagkat matapang tayo.
For God and my beloved Philippines, this is me, Jayne Sancho, SMNI News.
A panel of lawmakers has recommended extending the government ban to one of the Chinese messaging app over concerns of national security. For many Chinese Australians, WeChat serves as their lifeline to communicate with their loved ones back home. What pushed Australia to propose a ban on an essential tool that is driving business growth in China and supporting many Chinese Australians worldwide? Sheena Selim will tell us more.
In the report submitted by the Australian Senate Committee, lawmakers have proposed extending the federal government's ban from the Chinese-owned video-sharing app TikTok to the Chinese messaging app WeChat.
The recent report submitted by the panel of lawmakers labeled TikTok and WeChat, with its parent companies headquartered in China, as Australia's biggest national threat. To recall, the Australian government banned TikTok from federal government devices in April over fears the security of the app was compromised. Meanwhile, Australia and New Zealand General Manager Lee Hunter previously said that TikTok was not informed of the ban before it was leaked to the media, adding that the company was extremely disappointed by the decision, which was driven by politics and not fact. The committee claimed the Chinese government can easily require these companies to secretly cooperate with intelligence agencies in line with China's 2017 National Intelligence Law. The committee also heard that TikTok's China-based employees have access to Australian user data, although the company assured approval for the data went through its US-based employees. Moreover, the panel of lawmakers suggested that social media platforms should abide by Australia's set of transparency rules, while failure to meet the minimum standards will result in fines or a total ban as a last resort. Australia was the last country from the so-called Five Eyes intelligence sharing partners, which include the United States, Canada, Britain, and New Zealand, to have banned TikTok.
The proposed ban on WeChat is the latest move from Canberra to crack down on the potential influence linked to Beijing amid a deepening tech war between China and the US. Reporting from New South Wales, this is Sheena Selim, SMNI News, Australia.
The government of Australia is not giving up in its demand for Washington to end its pursuit of WikiLeaks founder and Australian citizen Julian Assange amid frustration for the lack of diplomatic resolution over the matter. Sasha Hassa has the details.
Australian Prime Minister Anthony Albanese believes that the United States will be persuaded to drop the case against Julian Assange despite his request being rejected by Washington. In a recent interview, Albanese told reporters enough is enough and maintained that Australia remains firm in representing its stance to Washington when it comes to the long-awaited freedom of the WikiLeaks founder. The Australian Prime Minister also expressed concern about Assange's mental health. Meanwhile, Australian Foreign Minister Penny Wong also asked the US government for the charges to finally be brought to a conclusion, noting it has been dragging on for too long. In response to Canberra's plea, U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken said that Assange was charged with very serious criminal conduct and has allegedly taken part in one of the largest compromises of classified information in the history of the United States. It remains to be seen whether the embattled WikiLeaks founder will finally earn his long-awaited freedom or be extradited to the United States, where he faces a 175-year sentence. Assange's family has called on the Australian government to increase pressure on the United States in dropping the case against WikiLeaks founder, who has been in high-security Belmarsh prison since 2019. Reporting from Sydney, this has been Sasha Hassa, SMNI News, Australia.
The Marcos administration should not be hastily judged, but rather given ample time to fulfill its promises, according to Pastor Apollo C. Kibuloy. Why did the good pastor say this? Let's find out in Ina Mortel's report.
In the recent comeback of his program Give Us This Day on August 2nd, Pastor Apollo C. Kibuloy shared his perspective on President Ferdinand Bongbong Marcos Jr.'s second State of the Nation address. According to Pastor Apollo, President Bongbong Marcos' report to the people was good, that he has certain expectations.
So lahat gusto ko. At anong inaasahan ko? Na lahat ng sinabi niya ay matutupad.
According to Pastor Apollo, it is still too early to judge the President's administration.
Masyadong maagang i-judge natin ang ating Pangulo ngayon sa isang taon pa lamang niya sa panunungkulan. Hintayin natin na ang lahat ng kanyang sinabi ay matutupad.
In relation to this, Pastor Apollo cited the time of former President Rodrigo Duterte, wherein Pastor Apollo waited for several years before speaking up, and so the former president fulfilled his promises.
Si Pangulong Duterte, di ba pinangako niya? Kaya nung tinanong ako, one day kung ano masasabi ko kay Pangulong Duterte, lalo na nung first year niya, sabi ko, I cannot judge sa ngayon. Hintayin muna natin na tuparin niya ang kanyang ipinangako. Dumating ang panahon, tinupad niya lahat ang pinangako niya. Tapos tulad sa drugs, ang laki ng kaltas sa peace and order natin, naging maganda, di ba? So napakaganda ng mga nangyari.
Pastor Apollo emphasized that President Marcos is still in the planting phase, so people should wait for the fruit of his efforts, which will serve as the basis for a leader's success.
Ngayon, nagtatanim pa lang siya. Yung pagtatanim, pangako yan. Maganda lahat ang sinabi doon. Walang masama doon. Para lahat ng kabutihan natin yun. Pero, hintayin natin ang magkabunga yung sinabi niya. Ako doon ako mahatol sa bunga. Because I always manage by the results. I always judge by the results.
This is why Pastor Apollo is praying for the success of the Marcos administration for the betterment of the country.
Habang ngayon, manalangin tayo na magsaksid ang ating Pangulo. Magsaksid ang kanyang administrasyon at ang kanyang pamamahala. Sapagkat siya ang ating itinalaga, inihalal para diyan sa posisyon na yan. Ipanalangin natin na lahat ng wisdom, knowledge, understanding ibibigay ng Ama sa kanya para siya ang maging guide ng bansang ito, sapagkat siyang pamuno ngayon, siya ang ama ng bansang ito ngayon na umuunang nag-guide sa atin sa lahat ng dapat na ikabubuti ng ating bansa. So idalangin natin na magtagumpay ang kanyang administrasyon at ang lahat ng kanyang sinabi ay magkaroon ng bunga at magkaroon ng resulta.
For God and my beloved Philippines, this has been Ina Mortel, SMNI News.
On the helicopter saga, Belarus provided proof to Poland that its aircraft never crossed into Polish airspace. This is amid Poland's growing concerns and accusations that Wagner might wage a hybrid attack against them from Belarus. Carlo de la Peña reports.
The Defense Ministry of Belarus recently released a detailed information to Poland to show them that 2 of their helicopters never crossed the Polish airspace. According to the ministry, quote, Belarusian helicopters were flying at an altitude of 150 to 200 miles, and the flight path did not approach closer than 1,900 miles to the state border. At the same time, on the same day, the Polish Mi-2 helicopter was flying 200 miles from our border, which was confirmed by the control data of radar stations. End of quote. The ministry also said that the Minsk pilots were in constant communication with the Polish Air Force during their flights, and at that time, they did not receive any complaints, noting that any provisions in circumstances where both sides can unambiguously monitor the movement of aircraft would be clearly illogical. The statement of the Belarusian Defense Ministry came after the Polish government on Tuesday summoned the Belarusian Chargé d'Affaires in Warsaw to express a strong protest and to demand the official to immediately and explain the incident in detail. Furthermore, the military of Poland had initially reported that the Minsk helicopters had not crossed the border, but they later said otherwise. Poland said that radar data was not available because the aircraft were flying at the very low altitude. Amid rising tensions between Poland and Belarus, Warsaw recently announced an increase of its military size from 170,000 to 300,000 due to the presence of Wagner fighters currently stationed in Belarus. Minister Mateusz Morawiecki on Saturday claimed that more than 100 Wagner fighters arrived near the border and that this is a step towards an upcoming attack on Poland. But Belarusian President Alexander Lukashenko scoffed at the claims, saying that Poland had gone mad over Wagner rumors. Belarusian military is currently training with Wagner forces. Meanwhile, U.S. State Department spokesman Matthew Miller said they are in constant communication with Poland, which was made zero move to invoke the Article 5 of the alliance. U.S. National Security Council spokesman John Kirby on Tuesday said that Washington was not aware of any specific threat from Wagner against Poland or any other of their NATO allies, but was closely monitoring the situation. Reporting, this has been Carlo de la Peña, SMNI News.
Amid the coup d'etat in Niger, France begins evacuating its citizens from the African country, a day after neighbors Mali and Burkina Faso said that any outside intervention to restore the ousted government would be seen as a declaration of war. Almar Forzuelo files this report.
Earlier this week, 3 French planes arrived in Niamey, the capital of Niger. The first plane left on Tuesday evening, carrying French citizens and other European nationals. French Foreign Minister Catherine Colonna said there are 262 people on board the said plane, an Airbus A330, including a dozen babies. This involved the Macron government cooperating with coup leaders to coordinate the evacuations and navigate Niger's closed airspace. With the country's airspace and airports closed to all flights, foreign nationals in Niger are unable to leave the country by their own means. The only way out is on evacuation flights, and those who want to leave are asked to take only a small bag with just essentials, as they cannot take a suitcase. This comes amid safety fears after dozens of Nigerian demonstrators burned French flags and stormed the country's embassy in Niamey on Sunday morning. An estimated 600 French citizens have expressed their desire to be evacuated from the African country in the coming days. Roughly 400 Europeans of various nationalities have also requested evacuations. However, the European Union has not yet issued a formal evacuation order. The EU will keep its presence in Niger and is monitoring the situation in the country. On July 26th, soldiers ousted Mohamed Bazoum, the country's democratically elected president, declaring that his government had been dissolved. 2 days later, General Abdourahmane Tiani, the commander of Niger's President Guard, was appointed head of state by a governing council formed by military forces. Following the military takeover, UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres condemned the coup, called for the immediate and unconditional release of Bazoum, and urged all sides to show restraint. However, the military governments of neighboring countries, Mali and Burkina Faso, warned that any outside intervention to restore the ousted government would be seen as a declaration of war. West African Regional Bloc ECOWAS has threatened to use force to reinstate Bazoum, while Mali and Burkina Faso said they would come to Niger's defense. A declaration by the two neighboring countries earlier this week also suggested a new alliance may be forming in opposition to the rest of the 15-member state bloc. On other Niger updates, its military government has banned the export of uranium and gold to France on Sunday. This comes after Paris suspended aid to Niamey following the coup. Niger is one of the world's 7th largest uranium and gold producer, accounting for 5% of global output. According to the World Nuclear Association, French media reports say the country accounts for 15 to 17% of uranium used in France to generate electricity. According to the European Atomic Energy Community, or Euratom, there is no immediate threat to nuclear power production if Niger suspends supplies, because utilities in the EU have enough uranium stocks to fuel nuclear power reactors for 3 years. However, it can be expected that global uranium prices are likely to rise. This is Almar Forsuelo reporting, SMNI News.
In Sudan, the fierce fighting between the two militaries continues to go as the days go by. Meanwhile, Sudan receives humanitarian aid from China to help civilians trapped in the conflict. Vigan has the details.
The fighting between the Sudanese Armed Forces or SAF and the Rapid Defense Forces or RSF in the capital region and the Darfur region continues to worsen. Recent clashes between the two militaries in the capital region mainly took place around two military bases. These are the Armored Forces headquarters in Khartoum and the Engineering Corps headquarters in Omdurman. A fierce fighting also broke out in Omdurman, which is said to be an important hub for RSF to transport the equipment and personnel from Darfur to the capital. The gun battle lasted nearly a whole day. Meanwhile, the Chinese embassy in Sudan on Wednesday provided a batch of humanitarian aid supplies to the Sudanese government in Port Sudan. The embassy handed over 4.6 tons of supplies, including medical consumables and medicines, were originally scheduled to be delivered by a Chinese medical team aiding Sudan to a local hospital, but they were held up in Port Sudan due to the outbreak of armed conflicts. Chargé d'Affaires ad interim of the Chinese embassy in Sudan, Zhang Xianghua, officially handed over the batch of supplies to the Undersecretary of Sudan's Ministry of Social Development, Jamal Al-Nil Abdullah, at the ceremony.
今天我们移交的手续援物资包括医疗器械、医疗耗材和药品等，有助于减轻苏丹的人道压力。此外呢，中方还计划向苏丹提供3批人道主义物资援助，包括食品、救灾物品和医疗用品等，预计将于8月和9月陆续交付。
Meanwhile, the Undersecretary expressed appreciation for China's support in times of conflict.
وهذا الدعم يؤكد متانة العلاقات بين جمهورية السودان ودولة الصين الشعبية في العلاقة الممتدة والتاريخية والدعم الممتد في جميع المحافل حقيقة. فنحن يعني نشكر لهم هذا الجهد. نشكر الصين حكومة وشعبا على هذا الجهد.
Vigan reporting, SMNI News.
Pastor Apollo C. Kibuloy is confident that the members of the New People's Army will be wiped out by the end of the year, just as desired by President Ferdinand Bongbong Marcos Jr. Let's know more about this with Jade Calabroso.
Ang dalangin natin ay matutupad na. Mawawala na ang salot na ito ng bayan, magbabagong loob na itong mga MPA.
Pastor Apollo C. Kibuloy of the Kingdom of Jesus Christ believes that the members of the terrorist group New People's Army will soon be wiped out in the country. This was Pastor Apollo's perspective when asked on his program, Give Us This Day on August 2, following President Ferdinand Bongbong Marcos Jr.'s directive to the Armed Forces of the Philippines to end the NPA before the year ends.
Ako'y positive talaga kasi napakarami lang fronte noon, no? Yes. Ilan ang fronte lang? 89 NPA guerrilla fronts noong 2016. Sa pamumuno ng ating Pangulong dito, NTF, LCAC at ang ICLIP, nalalagasan sila na hanggang ngayon, isa na lang ang fronte nilang active.
Pastor Apollo also emphasized the Marcos administration's plan to grant amnesty to rebel returnees. In connection to this, he had a message for the remaining members of the rebel movement.
Tanggapin na ninyo yan. Huwag na kayong makisama dyan sa armadong pakikiba. Wala kayong Wala nang kapupuntahan ng revolusyon ninyo. Puro la pera-pera yan. Negosyo na lang ninyo yan. Magbagong loob na kayo. Huwag na kayong gumamit ng baril para mangilkil ng mga tao. Manira. Wala na yun. Hindi natatanggapin ng bayan yun.
It can be recalled that following President Marcos' statement on the plan to grant amnesty, it was vehemently rejected by the communist terrorist groups CPP, NPA, NDF. To this, Pastor Apollo responded,
It's a lost cause. Mag-surrender na kayo. may amnestiya pa kayo, tutulungan pa kayo ng ating gobyerno, ano pang gusto nyo? O kung di pa nyo tatanggapin yan, talagang kalukuhan ang gusto nyo, di ba? O di kamatayan ang haharapin nyo kasi hahabulin kayo ng Armed Forces of the Philippines.
Pastor Apollo also called on the remaining members of the rebel movement, telling them that they are being used by the terrorist group.
Yan kasinsero ang ating pamahalaan. Kaya mga kababayan ko nasa kabundukan, nakikinig kayo, mga lamok kasama nyo, mga linta, at pagkatapos gutom na gutom kayo, namamatay kayo, putlang-putla kayo, may beri-beri, may diabetes pa, may kidney problem pa kayo, pamilya nyo, hinahabol kayo sa bundok, pagkatapos napakarami pang dengue dyan. Pero yung mga leader nyo, asarap ng buhay. Yung mga anak nila hindi pinapapunta sa bundok, doon sa mga magagandang universidad, kung saan-saan. Tanungin ninyo si kasarate ninyo kung saan ang anak niya. Di ba? Ang gaganda. Itong nasa 3 dyan, ang mga anak nila pumunta ba ng bundok? Wala. Maganda yung buhay nila, ginagamit lang nila kayo.
For God and my beloved Philippines, this has been Jade Calabroso, SMNI News.
Justice Secretary Boying Rimulya provides clarification on the issue regarding a missing inmate in Bilibid. Here's MJ Mondihar for this report.
In last week's interview, Justice Secretary Boying Rimulya disclosed that the remains of the missing inmate named Michael Cataroha have been found. According to Rimulya, the dismembered body of Cataroha was found in a septic tank in Bilibid after he was reported missing on July 15. However, during the investigation by the House Committee on Public Order and Safety, Secretary Rimulya clarified the situation.
Na-fake news po ako na nahanap ang katawan na putol ang ulo. Yun po yung unang sinabi sa akin na dumating po sa akin feed.
For lawmakers, there seems to have been negligence on the part of the Bureau of Corrections of Bucor as incorrect information reached the Justice Secretary.
Pag-alaman ko na lang is that may K9 na ginamit. Nung yung K9 ay pinaamoy ang damit ni Cataroha, yung aso mabilis tumakbo sa septic tank para sinasabi, para naroon yung pinaamoy nila na damit, yung tao nagsusuot. Pero yung na-fake news po ako na nahanap po yung katawan.
Jail Senior Inspector Angelina Bautista clarified that bone fragments were found in the septic tank, but there was no complete body. She also mentioned that the media was aware of the accurate story.
Wala pong bangkay na nandun. So kung ano po yung nakita, nakuha rin po ng camera nila yon. Ako po kasi mata lang ginamit ko, sila po may camera. So alam po ng media, mga kasama natin sa media ang totoo. So fake news po talaga yung nakarating kay Secretary, not coming from us.
Antipolo Representative Romy Acob questioned Bautista for seemingly avoiding responsibility after the spread of fake news to the DOJ Secretary.
Who informed the Secretary of Justice about the fake news?
Hindi po namin po alam, sir.
Ibig mo sabihin from nowhere. Yun ang sinabi ni Secretary of Justice. Secretary of Justice yan, wala siyang basihan sa sinasabi niya.
Yung pong nag-inform.
Sana nga nandito si Mr. Secretary para marinig yung sagot mo eh.
So, ang position ko ngayon, not unless nabuksan ko lahat yung septic tank, I will not declare na...
So, hindi nyo pa nabubuksan na lahat ng septic tanks?
Opo.
Hindi pa hanggang ngayon?
But Bautista maintained that the information didn't come from their side. The National Bureau of Investigation has yet to determine whose bones were found in the septic tank.
We have gathered items such as brief underwear. We also have one piece of bone, but this bone is still under verification whether it is a human remain or an animal remain.
Currently, the issue of prison congestion in Bilibid remains a significant challenge. According to the DOJ's estimate, there are over 30,000 convicts inside. Rimulya pointed out that the maximum security compound holds the highest number, with an estimated count of over 21,000 inmates. To resolve the issue, increased funding is needed to establish new penal colonies. And Rimulya, a former congressman turned Justice Secretary, knows about budget matters. And the timing for discussing Bilibid's funding problem coincided with the budget deliberations in the House.
Better budgeting ho para ma-decongest, tapos bigger budget for food. At actually nire-review ho namin buong legal system na eh. Kasi may mga tao dapat hindi na nakukulong pero nakukulong pa rin. Yun po yung nire-review namin ngayon.
Yung DBM, nag-decide ng budget, hindi naman alam ang nangyayari. I would like to call on the DBM right now, to go to the ground and visit Bucor, for example, because that's a very important problem.
Today is not the last time that the Bilibid issue will be tackled here in the lower house. In fact, a follow-up hearing will be held on the same matter next week. For Government of Philippines, I'm Jayne Codnita, SMNI News.
Meanwhile, China has proposed a new law to protect young internet users, limiting nighttime mobile access and mandating age-appropriate consent to address online addiction concerns. Here's my report.
Internet addiction, and in particular, smartphone addiction, worsened by COVID-19 pandemic. In fact, a 2022 study published by researchers at McGill University, Canada, found that China, along with Saudi Arabia and Malaysia, ranked the highest among 24 countries for problematic use of smartphones. A Chinese paper, Global Times, also conducted a survey showing that 21.3% of children under 16 whose parents go out for their homes to work have severe smartphone addiction. In response to this growing concern among Chinese youth, the Cyberspace Administration of China, or CAC, recently unveiled a proposal aimed at curbing excessive smartphone usage and exposure to harmful content. According to the draft rules published on the CAC's website, non-adult children will be prohibited from accessing the internet via mobile devices between 10 p.m. and 6 a.m. Moreover, teenagers aged between 16 and 18 will be limited to a maximum of 2 hours of mobile usage per day. The proposal also requires online platforms to promote lullabies for children under 3 years old and educational content for those under 12. The CAC explained that the primary aim of these measures is to protect minors and reduce internet addiction while curbing the impact of undesirable information. To ensure compliance with these regulations, the CAC has specified measures such as periodic checks and assessments, as well as granting access to data and technology upon request. Platform providers will be held accountable for enforcing the CAC's requirements. However, specific penalties for violations have yet to be detailed. The Chinese agency is currently seeking public feedback on the regulations, indicating the possibility of adjustments before final implementation. This move is part of a broader campaign initiated in 2021 by the Chinese government to address social concerns related to minors. In previous actions, China imposed restrictions on online gaming for children and declared for-profit after-school tutoring illegal. The announcement of these stringent rules has had an immediate impact on Chinese technology shares, with notable companies such as Kuaishou Technology, Weibo Corp, and Tencent experiencing declines in their stock value. Reporting, this has been Jayne Codnita, SMNI News.
Credit ratings agency Fitch, one of the 3 major independent agencies that assess creditworthiness, lowered the U.S. credit rating from the top-notch AAA to AA+. Fitch downgraded the U.S. government's credit rating over concerns about the growing debt burden and deterioration in standards of governance. The agency stated that the rating downgrade reflects the expected fiscal deterioration of the United States over the next 3 years, a high and growing general government debt burden, and the erosion of governance relative to peers. There has been a steady deterioration in standards of governance over the last 20 years. As said by Fitch, fiscal and debt matters included, notwithstanding the June bipartisan agreement to suspend the debt limit until January 2025. The downgrade, the first by a major rating company in more than a decade, came after a debt ceiling bipartisan agreement which was reached in June that followed months of political brinkmanship. Meanwhile, U.S. in response, Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen said in a separate statement that she strongly disagreed with the downgrade, calling it arbitrary and based on outdated data. The U.S. credit has been on the negative watch of Fitch since May, saying that it reflects increased political partisanship that is hindering resolving to raise or suspend the debt limit ahead of a looming deadline. North Korea has finally answered regarding the whereabouts of the runaway American soldier who sprinted over the heavily guarded border with South Korea last month. Let's find out more about this with Sela Yoon's report.
In its first answer regarding information of Private Travis King's location, North Korea has offered a very short response to the United Nations about U.S. Army Private Travis King. North Korea reportedly told the United Nations that the American soldier was taken into their custody. This was confirmed by Pentagon Press Secretary Brigadier General Patrick Ryder in a press briefing.
There was the initial passing of the information, and this was essentially an acknowledgement from the DPRK government that, yes, we have received your request for information.
The 23-year-old soldier suddenly crossed the borders of South Korea last July 18th. Whilst in a tour, he was due to be flown to the United States following disciplinary action.
I can confirm that the DPRK has responded to United Nations Command, but I don't have any substantial progress to read out, and so I'd refer you to the UN Command for any further details.
According to UN Command, as of now, they will not release any further details regarding Pyongyang's request. They also said that North Korea has responded to UN Command but will not release any details as to not interfere with the efforts of getting the private home. However, the command also said that Pyongyang is ready to start a conversation. The UN command, which guards the demilitarized zone, asked for information about the private king using the direct telephone in the North Korean army at the joint security area. Seoul, Isabela, Unimnida, SMNI News, South Korea.
Typhoon Kanon continues to wreak havoc on its second day in Japan, flooding streets with thousands of homes suffering power outage. Ria Saito has the details.
With Typhoon Kanon continues to bring heavy rains and violent winds to southwestern Okinawa and Kagoshima, residents have experienced power outages, flight cancellations, injuries, and fatalities. On its second straight day in Japan, the damage caused by Typhoon Kanon has resulted in 62 injuries and 2 deaths in the hit Kagoshima and Okinawa prefectures. The typhoon also caused power outages as it knocked down power lines. Around 166,000 households in Okinawa have lost electricity as of Thursday morning. In the Amami Islands in Kagoshima Prefecture, roughly 6,550 residences also lost their power supply as of 9 a.m. According to the Transport Ministry, Naha Airport has resumed its operations after shutting down for 2 days, which resulted in the cancellation of 304 flights. In what the Japan Meteorological Agency deemed as unusual, Kanon is expected to make a sharp turn on Friday, heading towards Japan's main islands. According to JMA, as of early afternoon, the typhoon is heading to the northeast slowly towards the East China Sea, with sustained winds of 100 miles per hour and gusts of 145 miles per hour, adding they no longer forecast it to directly hit China. 以上、日本から世界ニュースをお伝えしました。SMNI News, Japan.
Public health experts fear this year's dengue outbreak could result in a record number of deaths and infections for the second consecutive year, as the number of cases exceeded more than 50,000 for the first 7 months of 2023. Chatmongkon Pisamay Guson tells us more.
Experts fear for the worst as the dengue outbreak in Bangladesh has taken a worrisome turn, with the number of cases and fatalities to have reached frightening levels. In the latest daily count, the overall tally of infections has reached 57,127 since January of this year. On Wednesday alone, 9,325 dengue patients were admitted to hospital care around the country, more than half of them in Taga. Of this number, more than 47,500 have recovered, while 261 people have died due to dengue infection between January 1 and August 1. The Directorate General of Health Service warned it will be very difficult to control the dengue situation if Aedes mosquitoes cannot be killed or controlled nationwide. Health officials revealed hospitals in Taga are struggling to find space for the high caseload of patients suffering from high fever, joint pain, and vomiting. Dengue fever cases in Bangladesh is typically highest between June to September, but with the current trend, experts fear the outbreak will stay in the country until November, posing a threat of more infections and fatalities. รายงานจากกรุงเทพมหานคร นายชันมงคล พิสมัยโกศล SMNI ประเทศไทย สวัสดีครับ
Two of the largest and most well-known political parties in Thailand expected to form a new government have officially parted ways as the ongoing political limbo prolonged the process of selecting the country's next prime minister. Anissa de Guzman reports.
After a few months of what seemed to be a promising partnership, the Pheu Party earlier this week decided to end its alliance with the Move Forward Party and 6 other aligned parties to form a coalition of its own. On August 2, the Pheu Party announced it will break its alliance with the Move Forward Party MFP and nominate real estate tycoon Shweta Sawisin as the next prime minister in a parliamentary vote scheduled on Friday. This came after Move Forward Party leader and the election winner, Pita Limjaronrat, encountered resistance from military and pro-royalist senators with his nomination bid as prime minister delayed thrice since the first took place on the 13th of July. The next vote to pick the country's next leader will take place on August 4, but the schedule remains uncertain as it will depend on what the Constitutional Court does the day before. On August 3, the Constitutional Court will decide whether to accept a petition related to Pita's previously rejected renomination for Prime Minister. If the court accepts the petition, a parliamentary vote would not take place on August 4. Pita, who has a Western educational background and came from a family of money and political connections, vowed to pursue a reform of the Lèse Majesty Law or Article 112 as part of its campaign pledges, a move rejected by pro-military parties and conservative lawmakers. He is currently suspended from parliament duties after the Constitutional Court accepted a case that alleged he was not eligible to run in the election. Moreover, Pheu Thai's founder, self-exiled former Prime Minister Thaksin Shinawatra is all set to return to Thailand on August 10 after spending almost 15 years overseas, despite threats of arrest warrants and a 12-year jail sentence from 3 cases. In May, a faction of Pheu Thai supporters urged the party to distance itself from the MFP due to an internal disagreement concerning the House Speakership post. The two allies managed to meet halfway and solve the dispute, but the obstacles in nominating Pita as the next prime minister, as well as opposition from other parties to make amends to the controversial Lèse Majesty Law, urged Pheu Thai to leave the coalition. Disha Anissa de Guzman, Trangan Chakuntep Mahanakon, SMNI News, Pratatay, Sawadika.
The United Arab Emirates promised to allow environmental activists to make their voices heard by authorizing peaceful assembly at this year's climate conference organized by the United Nations. Jonathan Acobo tells us more.
Marhaba! The UAE will provide a space for environmental activists to gather for peaceful assembly at this year's UN climate talks, a decision that earned praise from Climate Action Network, a global organization of more than 1,900 civil society organizations nationwide.
The UAE is set to host the 2023 UN Climate Change Conference from November 30 to December 12 in Dubai. More than 140 heads of state, senior government leaders, over 70,000 participants, and more than 5,000 media professionals are expected to attend the global event. The choice of UAE to host the summit has sparked criticism from environmental groups, which warned that the involvement of a major oil exporter could delay progress in the fight against global warming. Amid the criticisms, Emirati officials said they will allow peaceful assembly of climate activists in the country. Official permission is required to hold protests in the Gulf nation, while the government has the power to ban protests it deems disruptive. The UAE has made significant efforts to lessen carbon emissions by making huge investments in renewable energy sources. The oil-rich nation has also set a more ambitious target for curbing carbon emissions by 40% by 2030. Moreover, UAE has announced the so-called Net Zero by 2050 strategic initiative, a national drive to achieve net zero emissions by the year 2050. The move will make UAE the first Middle East and North Africa MENA nation to do so. Tajublak al-Mazimit Hatiti at Kanrum the Bike and Jocelyn Cobos My News, Natida Bemrets.
For its second quarter of 2023, the Philippine National Police gains a significant decrease in crime rates compared to the same period in the previous year. More details from Paul Montibuan.
The PNP has released its latest report from the Directorate for Investigation and Detective Management's Crimes Research Analysis Center, revealing a notable decrease in crime rates for the period covering April 24, 2023 to July 30, 2023, compared to the same period in the previous year. According to the report, the overall peace and order indicator saw a promising decline of 6.69%, or the total of 3,737 incidents, with a total of 52,163 recorded crimes in the comparative period, as opposed to 55,900 incidents in 2022. Notably, both Luzon and Mindanao regions experienced a significant decline in crime rates, with decreases of 10.51% or 3,300 and 9.51% or 1,326 respectively. The Visayas region meanwhile saw an increase of 8.4% or 889 in reported incidents. PNP Chief Police General Benjamin Horder Jr. stated that the decrease in crime rates is a positive indication of the efforts made by the National Police to maintain peace and order across the country. Horder also assured the public of maintaining safe environment for all the citizens. The data also revealed significant changes, particularly in the top 3 most prevalent index crimes. From April 2022 to July 2022, theft topped the list with 3,708 incidents, followed by rape with 2,702 and physical injury with 1,515. In the same period of 2023, theft remained the most prevalent with 3,259 incidents, while rape decreased to 1,834 and robbery replaced physical injury with 1,197. Horder emphasized the importance of addressing these specific crimes and implementing targeted strategies to further reduce their occurrence. PNP Chief Horder also encouraged the public to remain vigilant and continue cooperating with the law enforcement agencies to maintain the downward trend in crime rates. He also assured that the Philippine National Police would sustain their commitment to creating a safer environment for all citizens. For God and for my beloved country, the Philippines, reporting for Newsline World, this has been Paul Montibon, SMNI News.
In Canada, hundreds of caregivers from different provinces of the country gathered at Earl Bales Park, Ontario, to celebrate the 6th anniversary of the Canadian Caregivers Assistance Organization, or CCAO. Let's find out more about this from Merx Buzarang.
OFW caregivers here in Toronto, Canada held its 6th OFW Caregivers Day to appreciate their hard work and sacrifices, as well as their contribution to Philippine economy. Hundreds of caregivers coming from different provinces of Canada gathered at Earl Bales Park to celebrate their 6th anniversary. It is to give honor and recognition for all the hard work and sacrifices of our OFWs who flew from the Philippines to support their families. The celebration brought the Filipino community in Canada closer than ever. OFWs also received prizes from the event. Various organizations also took part in the event to spread their advocacy to caregivers. Although they encountered bad weather during the celebration, it did not hinder them in having fun and promoting their message. Under the mentorship of Mr. Alan Basa, Cignal educates the OFW about the opportunities and rights here in Canada, as well as equipping their skills and training them to improve their competence and compatibility.
This community mentorship program is to take advantage of the experience and success of our kababayans na naging successful dito sa Canada, and we want them to mentor the caregivers, mentor the newcomers, and pass on their skills so that whatever field the caregivers and newcomers want to pursue, there's somebody who can mentor them. Our program on the itong mga caregivers that are abused, we continue to rescue them from abusive employers, and we continue our programs for education. Language. Tutorials for those who have hard time passing the language exam, and many other programs that we continue to do. Whether it's summer, winter, fall, or spring, we're there. No?
Mr. Alan Basa also shares the main and common struggles of the OFW caregivers who decided to fly here from Philippines to Canada.
Ating mga caregivers are still being confronted with a very high, unreasonable, and unjust eligibility requirement. And marami po talagang umiiyak na dahil nagiging very elusive ang kanilang hinahangad na ma-reunite sa kanilang pamilya by becoming a permanent resident. So, we have petitioned that in the past. There were short success and victories. May programang pinapalabas dahil sa ating mga apila at petisyon, but they're short-lived. Now, marami pa rin ang naiipit. So what we now are doing is to continue petitioning this new administration of the Canadian Immigration, IRCC.
Meanwhile, fellow Filipinos coming from different provinces shared their thoughts as they showed up at the event wearing a colorful attire from the Mindanao tribe.
Kailangan natin matulungan yung mga bagong mga generation ngayon. I-ano natin sa kanila, explain natin yung mga culture sa Filipino para ma-preserve yung values at malalaman nila kung ano yung mga iba't ibang tradition sa Mindanao. Kasi yung mga new generations ngayon, hindi nila alam. So kailangan i-introduce po natin sa mga anak natin, lalo na yung dito na na-born but they are Filipino-Canadian.
In addition, despite the controversies and issues that the media is facing, fellow Filipinos still show their support to SMNI, especially to Pastor Apollo C. Kibuloy.
Ang masasabi ko sa SMNI, yan lang ang station na nagsabi ng totoo. Truth that matters, and I love Pastor Kibuloy. Pastor Kibuloy, we're here to preserve our cultural heritage in Mindanao, and I know that you are one of the benevolent and who advocate the indigenous tribes in Mindanao. I am one for you. Thank you. Mabuhay!
For my God and my beloved Philippines, this has been Merx Buzarang, SMNI News, Canada.
They might have failed to enter the semifinals for the ongoing 2023 Shaky Super League National Invitationals, but members of the JMC volleyball team for sure did not return to Davao City empty-handed, as they brought home with them a new level of knowledge and expertise after butting heads with the top teams from the NCAA and UAAP. Here's more from Alisa Torres.
It was on Saturday, the 29th of July, when the Josemaria College Foundation Lady Royals came face-to-face with UAAP third-placer Adamson Lady Falcons for the 2023 Shaky Super League National Invitationals held in Filoil Eco Royal Center in San Juan City. The JMC Lady Royals failed to win in the said tournament after the Lady Falcons beat them in all three sets, with the game pulling up 25-17, 25-11, 25-17. JMC Lady Royal head coach Llewellyn Villiber admitted that her team was still adjusting during the first game.
So adjustment period yung first game, saka malakas pa, Adamson.
The next day, on the 30th of July, the JMC Lady Royals proved they can be at par with the country's top collegiate leagues after beating the Lyceum of the Philippines University Lady Pirates, one of the high-caliber teams under the NCAA lineup. The JMC Lady Royals lost against their competitor during the first set, although the setback was only temporary as the team was able to dominate the entire remaining sets, making sure to end the game victorious. In the fourth set of the game, the young Uriel Brion showed off her skills, which resulted in the team achieving their first win for the set tournament. For JMC Lady Royals, winning a match against a top-notch team such as LPU Lady Pirates, which was declared the NCAA Season 98 Women's Volleyball First Runner-Up, is truly an achievement on their part as it helped boost their chances for the quarterfinals. Joma Maypalero sealed her team's victory with 18 points from 13 attacks and 5 aces, lifting their JMC Avai score to 1-1 in Pool C. Micaela Oliveros contributed 15 points with 4 blocks, while Brion scored 11 points. According to Coach Villiber, the Lady Royals portrayed the heart of a true fighter and showed their strength and unity, which led the team to seize their first win.
Yung second game, parang will ng mga bata na hindi tayo makakatalo, lalaban tayo. So, they came up with a plan and then they won.
On Wednesday, August 2, the Lady Royals battled with the tall players of the reigning UAAP champions of the De La Salle University Lady Spikers. The DLSU Lady Spikers dominated the game in the entire 3 sets and ended the JMC Lady Royals campaign with a score of 25-18, 25-14, 25-19. Despite the loss, Coach Villiber saw the match as a great opportunity for the team to gain new insights through a face-off with the reigning UAAP champion.
And the Salle team is the strongest team in the Philippines now when it comes to the collegiate level. The whole UAAP and the top league of the country is the UAAP. They hold the UAAP and then they are really good. Very fortunate for us to play with them. Very fortunate for us. And we fought. Hindi kami iniwan. Lumaban kami. Despite of all the weaknesses that we had.
The Lady Royals said that they learned many lessons in playing against top teams at the national level.
Iba yung mga players dito. Matataas sila, matatangkad. Unlike kung sa amin doon, like, okay lang kahit hindi pa maliit. Mas may puruhan kung mataas ka.
Great experience but as well as great opportunity. Kasi po, yung mga kalaro kasi namin is first runner-up ng NCAA, then yung DLSU, then yung championship ng UAP. So, yung champ ng UAP. So, grabe yung experience ko.
Nalipay may kay nakig-compete med diri sa Manila, although daghan kayo mga players na kusog og great opportunity kayo sa moa na maka-learn me through sa mga dula diri sa Manila.
Coach Villiber and the volleyball players also thank the good Pastor Apollo C. Kibuloy, for the support and opportunities given to the JMC Lady Royals.
Message ko kay Sir Pastor Apollo C. Kibuloy. Sir, thank you for everything. Without you, we cannot be here. We cannot compete here without your support. Thank you for everything, sir. Thank you.
Thank you po, Pastor. Thank you sa inyong pag-support sa team. Salamat kay sinabot na rin na yung pag-support sa amin. Salamat sa pag-support sa amin pag-support. Thank you kay Pastor.
Pastor, thank you po sa support, Pastor. Di kami makapunta dito kung wala yung support po. Thank you po.
Thank you, Pastor Apollo Kibuloy, for giving us opportunity na makaadto diri na feel lang mo imuhang support. O thank you sa ginapanghatag nimo na from foods and sapatos, Pastor. Thank you po.
The JMC Lady Royals was one of the top 2 teams in Mindanao to have joined the National Invitationals, participated by 10 other teams from the NCAA and the UAAP, as well as top-caliber teams from Visayas. Reporting this has been Alisa Torres, SMNI News.
And before we end, may you be inspired with the message of the appointed Son of God. Just be faithful. The Almighty Father will promote you in due time. That's all for today's edition of Newsline World. For more news update, you may visit SMNINewsChannel.com or follow us on our official social media accounts on Rumble, Facebook, and Twitter. For God and my beloved country, the Philippines, I'm Jayne Codnita. Thank you for watching Newsline World, and thank you to our beloved pastor, Pastor Apollo C. Kibuloy, for the opportunity to be part of this program. May you continue to listen to SMNI as it delivers nothing but fair, truthful, and balanced news, because SMNI is your source of